What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video and welcome back to another episode for the positional previews for the New York Giants. Today we're looking at wide receivers, probably our deepest position in on the offense and defense on the whole entire team is wide receiver. Most of these wide receivers who are on the roster last year are going to be on the roster this year. I don't see anybody really beating their spot for it. Except a couple of players that I think can make the roster or the practice squad for that matter. But in this episode, we're going over Odell Beckham Jr., Sterling Shepard, Brandon Marshall, Roger Lewis, Dwayne Harris, Tavarres King, Darius Powe, who was on our practice squad last year, who was just beaten out for the spot for the last wide receiver position by Roger Lewis. Travis Rudolph, undrafted free agent pickup from Florida State. Kevin Snead, undrafted free agent pickup from, I believe, a Division III school. I can't remember the name of his school. Jalen Williams, who's coming from UMass. Keeon Johnson, who's coming from Virginia, University of Virginia. And then Kevin Norwood, who played in the NFL a couple years. I think the last time I seen him was on Carolina. Correct me if I'm wrong. Carolina, so he has a chance to make this roster. He's not too bad. At least he's made a 53 before. So, going on to the top of the list, Odell Beckham. We already know he's coming back. He's going to be our star receiver. And yeah, we just needed somebody. In this offseason, we knew Victor Cruz. We kind of already knew Victor Cruz. This was his time to go. So we were like, okay, I guess Sterling Shepard's coming in. He's going to be that number 2 guy. Hopefully he's ready to step up into that lead. But the Giants surprised us by picking up Brandon Marshall. He's going to come and be our number 2 wide receiver. He's happy about being a number 2. You don't hear wide receivers say that all the time. But in this case, Brandon Marshall is ready to be that number 2. And definitely it's a step up from Victor Cruz. No disrespect to Victor Cruz, but I think, Brandon Marshall has always been a better receiver. Talking about 2 years ago, Brandon Marshall had more yards than Victor Cruz's best year. So, and I don't even know if that was Brandon Marshall's best year was 2 years ago when he had that 1,500-yard season. So, yeah, moving on, we already went over Odell Beckham and Brandon Marshall. Sterling Shepard, he's coming back, as this time again being our number 3 wide receiver. Well, I think he was our number 2 last year if you guys really put it into that aspect. On the depth chart, he was listed as I believe he was listed as number 3 on the depth chart last year in the beginning of the season. But he's coming in, going to be our slot receiver again, mostly from the slot. And yeah, hopefully he can get over like 800 yards. I believe he had just about 600 yards or a little bit more than 600 yards in his rookie campaign. 8 touchdowns, great year for Sterling Shepard. And hopefully he can step into that role and just be an absolute monster, take the pressure off of Odell Beckham and Brandon Marshall. Moving on, Dwayne Harris, he's obviously going to make this roster as our punt returner or kick returner, but there is one guy who could beat him for that spot, and that might be the reason why Dwayne Harris will be cut, but we'll see what happens as we get on with this list. And we got Roger Lewis coming back, very inconsistent. We thought that he could get plenty more opportunities because he's shown a lot of great, signs of potential with him. I think his first 2 catches in the NFL were like 2 touchdowns, and then he dropped a lot of passes that could be touchdowns as well. And he was a very, very good guy. You could just throw out there. Nobody really notices him. Nobody thinks he's going to be a threat. And then catches a touchdown on you. He was very good for us last year. Definitely exceeded expectations. But then as he started to exceed expectations, we kind of set more for him, and he didn't get past that. So Roger Lewis definitely has to get better with his consistency. He has a lot of drops. He could have had 5 touchdowns last year as our what was it, a 6 wide receiver last year. He could have had 5 touchdowns last year, but he dropped like 3 of them that could have been touchdowns. So, and also dropped a lot of first downs, what would be first downs. So coming back, he's going to be competing with Tavarres King, who also made the roster last year. Well, they were switching between Tavarres King and Roger Lewis with the reps. But yeah, he's going to be competing with him once again, along with Darius Powe, who was on the practice squad last year. And I just want to mention something. Tavarres King was the only wide receiver that showed up on that Green Bay game, so hopefully he does something in the preseason and makes the roster again and, you know, winds up playing for us again. But Darius Powe, he was also another wide receiver I was looking at last year making the roster, and he did all right, but he did not do enough, and he was eventually cut. He had a couple of good practices, a couple of good highlights in practice that I seen for the Giants last year, but couldn't really get onto the roster. He wound up making the practice squad. Moving on, we've got Travis Rudolph. In my opinion, he reminds me of a Deshaun Jackson. Deep threat, not that great with route running, and definitely could beat you in the air. I mean, he can definitely run right by you. He's getting better. I've seen him run routes, Travis Rudolph. He looks all right, but I didn't really see that when I was watching his tape. So he was definitely just used as a deep threat kind of guy, and hopefully he can make this roster and be that deep threat kind of guy for those situations where, you know, it's a win now or something like that, or something like that. And then we've got, I'm going to say Kevin Snead for last. Jalen Williams and Keeon Johnson, I think they're just there just to be there. I really didn't see anything. I saw a couple highlights from both players, and they don't really look like they have anything special to make this roster and beat out anybody on this roster. So, you know, I think Kevin Norwood, he could wind up beating Tavarres King or Roger Lewis because he has that experience. He's an experienced wide receiver in this league. And, you know, maybe he could show something like Tavarres King last year. Tavarres King was in the league for a couple of years. He went onto the Giants roster and then wound up making the roster. Yeah, with Kevin Norwood, we'll see what happens, but I don't think he's going to make the roster either. Kevin Snead, I think, can make this roster. Not as a wide receiver. You know, he's listed as a wide receiver, but I don't think he'll get much playing time as one. Maybe a couple times as a deep threat if Travis Rudolph doesn't make the roster. But then you've got, you know, Kevin Snead for the special team situations. I think he's a pretty good return man. If he could beat out Dwayne Harris for that return spot, then we cut Dwayne Harris, save some money, and put Kevin Snead on the roster, a cheaper option and a better option. That's the only way I see Kevin Snead making this roster. I don't see him making the roster as a regular wide receiver. I think if anybody's going to beat him he's the fastest player in college football. Last year. That's what he was known for. But Travis Rudolph is no joke either, and I think Travis Rudolph is a better receiver all around, plus the speed than Kevin Snead. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below as I make this unofficial depth chart. I can see the Giants keeping 6 wide receivers this year. We got an Odell Beckham Jr., Sterling Shepard, Odell Beckham Jr., Brandon Marshall, sorry about that, Sterling Shepard, who else? Let's put Dwayne Harris at number 4 because I still think he has potential. They just need to use him more. His only catch last year was the touchdown. Keep that in mind. Who else? I think Tavarres King for that number 5 spot. And then Roger Lewis for the number 6 spot. I just don't see anybody. I think Travis Rudolph could beat Roger Lewis, but I just don't see it. I really don't see it. So I think the same wide receivers we had last year is the same wide receivers going to be on this year. So I don't think anybody else is going to be. Even though there's a lot of good talent here, Travis Rudolph and Kevin Snead, Kevin Norwood, those are 3 players that can make a roster somewhere else, just not with us. Our depth is just too much for, you know, anybody else to make the roster. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which is probably going to be either tight ends or O-line. So keep watch for that.